Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. I've gotten a couple requests to talk about what knots I use and in what circumstances I use those knots. And, you know, the knot question is one that I really think comes down to the individual and what knot they have the most confidence in. For me, it's really important to be able to have full confidence in a knot and to be able to efficiently tie that knot. Like for example, the FG knot. It's all the craze. People like to be able to say that they can tie it. When they tie it, they love using it. But the issue with the FG knot is it's not an easy knot to tie, and it takes a substantial amount of time to tie it. So in my opinion, it's not a knot that I choose to use, and it's not a knot that I think is a good tournament knot. And I'm not saying there aren't guys that are super efficient at tying it and can do it quickly, but I would challenge them that I can tie a uni to uni knot to connect a leader to my main line faster than they can tie an FG knot. So much so that I probably can get 2 casts in to their, to their ability to finish their knot. So from a tournament standpoint, being able to tie my leader line on faster and get a couple extra casts is more important to me than being able to tie the FG knot. I truly do not believe that the FG knot gives an angler an advantage when it comes to catching fish. I think it's a very streamlined knot. I think it flies through your guides well. But for me, the majority of my leader knots are being tied on 6 to 10 pound test, and my uni to uni knot, a double uni knot, is not at a size where it's going to limit my casting ability. That knot flies through my guides just as well as an FG knot will. So, do I think that the FG knot is a good knot? Yeah, I think it's a good knot. I don't think it's a good knot for me in a tournament situation, because I can get several additional casts on per knot that I have to tie. And if you're tying 7, 8 FG knots throughout the day, and that gives me an extra 15 to 20 casts, I will take those casts any day of the week over having an FG knot. Like, I truly do not believe that the FG knot gives me an advantage of putting more fish in the boat over my competition. So that, that's how I view knots. I think you need to be very efficient at tying them, and they have to be good knots that you have confidence in. So I don't know that there's a right or wrong knot to have, like this is the best knot versus another knot. I think it comes down to you guys and what knot you prefer to tie. And as long as it's a good knot, which the majority, if not all of the fishing knots that we're using on a regular basis, I think you're good. I think you're fine. When it comes to me, I have 4 knots that I tie. 4 knots. So when it comes to connecting leader line, like I mentioned before, I like the double uni knot. A uni to uni knot has held up great for me over the years. I have had so few circumstances where that knot failed that I have supreme confidence in a uni to uni knot. And for me, I can tie it super fast. Like I've gotten to the point where, I can tie it blind, and that's important. So for connecting leader line, that's the knot that I choose to tie. If I'm using braided line, I've really got two knots. First is a Polymer knot, and I printed out some sheets here just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So a uni to uni knot, that's it. Pretty straightforward. You guys can look it up and learn how to tie it on your own. I just want to show you so you know what knot I'm talking about if you're not familiar with the names. So when I'm tying braided line, I've got 2 knots that I use. If I'm flipping heavy cover, and I'm using a heavy straight shank hook, I will tie a snell knot. You know, a snell knot I think is a very, very good knot for flipping. I'm not necessarily one that thinks the hookup percentages are better, but I do believe you lose less fish on a snell knot once you've hooked the fish. I think as long as you know that your hook set, as long as you know how to set the hook with a snell knot, you're good. And once you drive that hook into the fish, you lose less fish with a snell knot than you will with a different braided line knot. So I use the snell for heavy pitching. Pretty much everything else I throw a braided line on, you know, whether that's frog fishing, if I'm swim jigging with it, chatterbaiting with it, flipping just general cover, and I'm not using a straight shank hook, then I'm throwing a Polymer knot. And a Polymer knot, and occasionally I'll even use a double Polymer knot. I don't think that improves the strength of the knot over the Polymer knot, but you know, I think that knot is a super good braided line hook or braided line knot. You get very, very little slippage with a Polymer knot, and I've just had really very little issues with it when using braided line. I will say I do not like to use it nearly as much for fluorocarbon or monofilament, and it just seems like it doesn't hold up as well for me, and I don't really know why that is. I just don't use it for those circumstances. When using fluorocarbon and monofilament, at that point I'll go to what I call a 3-tag knot. There's several kind of variations of it out there. I think some people call it a double zendo, something like that. It's just a great knot. To me, it's really similar to a Polymer knot. It's basically like what I would consider a double Polymer knot, only instead of going through the eye twice, you're just doing the wrap and then you go through a loop later on. I was looking for a photo of it. I can't even find anything like these other couple photographs I've shown you. But you can look it up. There's lots of videos. If you Google 3-tag knot or double zendo, they'll pop up. But what I like so much about that knot is it goes through the eye like a Polymer knot. So you've got 2 lines around the hook eye. And at that point, I feel like you do have more strength and break off less, specifically on the cast. You know, the cast and on the hook set. So if you're flipping with it, you just don't break off as many fish on that initial hook set or on a cast. Just seems like a super strong knot. It's a pretty simple knot to tie. You know, they're really, that's one thing with all the knots that I choose to do. They're all relatively simple knots to tie. It's not, you know, when you're out in the boat and it's cold weather and it's windy and it's, you know, you're bouncing up and down in the waves, the last thing I want to do is fiddling around with a knot that, you know, requires me to go in and out of loops and wrap 12 times and just, you know, whatever you need to do for that knot. And I think it's critical that you have to be able to tie that knot quickly and do it correctly every time. So those are the knots that I use. I keep it very straightforward. I really don't change the knot much based on bait type. It's really based on line type. And, you know, those 4 knots are the knots that I tie. I really don't work in any other knots. But I just want to stress to you guys, the knots that you choose, you just need to feel comfortable in them. You need to know how to tie them efficiently, and you need to have confidence that they will do the job that you want them to do. And if you're comfortable with those knots, then it doesn't matter what other people are saying. As long as those knots are good for you, then they'll work. That's what it comes down to. So that's my take on knots. Pretty simple when it comes to them. Guys, if you enjoy the video, leave a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel, and let me know if there's other topics that you want me to address. I'm pretty straightforward on most of this stuff. I'm not going to be one of those guys that'll be like, you know, it's super specific. When it comes to building baits and making rods, I am very specific. I enjoy, you know, I'm detail orientated. But with other things like knots, like I said, it's really about efficiency and confidence. And, you know, in this case, I keep it pretty simple. So guys, you know, like I said, like, subscribe, leave a comment, tune in again for my next tip coming out. I have videos every other day. Thanks for watching.